everyone to one of the funnest evenings that I'm sure you will ever have in your entire life. We're here to talk about privacy, and just out of respect for all of your privacies, I want to warn you that this is being taped for future use. So if you want to ask questions and you're hesitant about it, you don't want to do it on tape, wait until the tape's off, and then I'm willing to take your questions. I can stick around as long as you want. If you don't mind, if you want to be a star, it won't pick up your face, it'll just pick up your voice, so we appreciate your questions. With that being said, let me introduce myself for those of you who don't know who I am. My name is Matt Wilson. I am one of the associate deans here. I'm over the professional programs. I'm also general counsel of the university, and I also am director of the law program. So that's a little bit of what I do. And I have had the benefit, or the pleasure, I guess, of dealing with this new law that they've decided to implement here in Japan. Their new personal information privacy protection law. And if you've been watching the news, if you've been reading the news, I'm sure you've seen that it's a big news item. And it comes into effect on Friday. And in fact, it affects all of us. It affects everybody here in Temple, everybody out on the street, small companies, big companies, you name it, there are a number of obligations. And what I've done is I've spent a lot of time putting together a privacy policy that hopefully will protect you, hopefully that will protect Temple, and it will show that we've taken reasonable steps to comply with the law. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why we're here, what the law is, and exactly what you need to be doing as an administrator, staff, professor to make sure that we're in compliance with this law. So, with that being said, let me kind of do the headline news. 6 o'clock, the news comes on, and so this is your dose of the news. And there's a number of headlines that have popped up, and these have just been here in Japan over the last month. You've got a case where the legal computer use has reached record levels. You know, going in and hacking, getting information is up 40% over the previous year's total. You also have a lot of headlines. Imposters gain personal data over the telephone by deception. You know, you've probably heard of this Ore scheme where people call grandparents and they try and get bank account information and everything else. Well, it doesn't stop there, actually, in Japan. In fact, what it's gone on is you have had some people calling up children after school and asking about their peers, calling up neighbors and having someone pose as a police officer over the phone saying, we're investigating your neighbor, can you get information for us, or can you give us information about what you know? And then they're going out and they're using that personal data to create credit card accounts, do other illegal and illicit things. And as a result of these things and many others, this is why the Japanese government has decided that they're going to act and actually create this new privacy law. Another thing, personal data of over 4,000 university alumni stolen from car. In Japan, somebody takes their laptop away from work. They decide that they're going to go into the store, do some shopping. They leave it on the chair in their front seat. Windows broken, laptop's gone. Now is the data of 4,000 alumni, including their date of birth, their name, their address, and where they work. Kind of a scary thought. Imagine if it was your data. Would you want your data floating around? Probably not. There was an article that I sent around to a lot of senior staff, this isn't limited to Japan, of course, in the United States. Somebody walked into the University of California at Berkeley last week. The person was gone from their desk for 5 minutes. They picked up the computer and walked out the door. 10,000 names. Now the University of California, Berkeley is calling every single one of those alumni and apologizing and asking what they can do to make it better. And I don't want any of us to be in that situation at all, and so that's why we're doing this. Another thing, phishing. Phishing is another big thing that's actually going on. So there's a lot of these scams that are actually out there, and that's why we've ended up with this law. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about what is personal information. Because people ask, what is it? What are we actually protecting? So let me give you some examples. And these examples come out of the law and out of the guidance that each of the ministries have actually given to us. Personal information can be a name. Simple as that. A roll. It's got a list of names on it. That's personal information. That's something that we've got to be careful with, that doesn't get in somebody's hands that's not affiliated with TUJ. As long as you're a member of TUJ, we can go ahead and we can share information. It's a problem of when it goes outside of TUJ employees, that's where the issue comes up. Students are not employees, so we've got to be careful with what we actually go out and divulge to them and what we do. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the measures that we've got there. An address, a birth date, an email address can constitute personal information. If it has a person's name in it, it's personal. If it's x89123445@tuj.ac.jp, that doesn't constitute personal information. Why? Because you can't identify that person. So the easy way to think about it is if you have information that you can identify the person with, then it could potentially be personal information. Telephone number, family data, like parents' names, a guarantor, a sponsor. Employment information could be a Gaijin card, a passport, financial data. Grades could potentially be grades. Papers, evaluation results. Now, we do evaluations here in all the classes. Are they anonymous? If they're anonymous, you don't need to worry about it. If they have names and information on the top, you potentially do. You need to make sure you keep those secure. And there's some things that we're going to do from the administrative side to try and make sure that that happens or that we're protected. But there's a lot of things that you have to do as well. Because a lot of the breaches, when it comes to personal information, sure, you have computer hacking, but over half of the personal breaches or the breaches of personal information come from people that are just not careful and not thinking or things that are actually taken. So let me talk to you about what the law requires. And this is what it is. Every time you go and get personal information, you need to clearly specify the use. Let me give you an example. I drafted a privacy policy that was posted on our website. And the privacy policy said, by using our website and providing any type of information, or just by using it, you consent to us using your data in whatever way we want to. If you don't want us to use your data, then don't use our website. That was what our privacy policy said up until then. And it's on the very bottom of our website. I know a lot of you have probably never looked at it, and probably a lot of people haven't, but that was there. That isn't the case anymore. And it can't be the case not only for websites, but let's say you're sending out a survey, a sign-up sheet to your students. You're sending around a list in class that has email addresses on it. You've got to, on that document, specify the use. And it can't be just for internal purposes. It can't be for administrative uses. So if you're creating a form or something where you're going to be receiving documents, I would want to know about it because you need to have language on it. So you can contact me. I'm here on the 3rd floor. My email address is wilson@tuj.ac.jp. I'm also creating I'm going to create a file that you can all access that will have certain set templates. So you can go and use those so you don't need to contact me every time. But that's what we're going to have to do. If the purpose changes, let's say you say, I'm just going to use this to send you mail about our courses, and you decide that you're going to do fundraising, or you decide you're going to contact them for a party or something like that. That hasn't been specified, so you would theoretically have to go and get consent from that person again to get this done. Maintain accurate data. You've got to make sure that it's accurate. If somebody finds out that our data is inaccurate, then that's a problem. Supervision of employees. That's required by the law. And the guidelines have said make sure that employees are trained. So people that are in supervisory positions, and I know all these things don't apply to everybody, so take and pick, but anybody in a supervisory position needs to make sure that the employees are doing some of the things that we're talking about. Security measures to protect data. This is not only on the computer side, but it's also on what you do with your offices, what you do with your desks, what you do with your filing cabinets, what documents you can take away from school. And so you've got to make sure that there are security measures to protect the data. You cannot provide them to a third party without consent. Can't give the data. If there's a student that wants to go or a student or a prospective student or an outside party that's given this information and they request that we correct it or delete it, we have to comply with that within a reasonable period of time. If they ask us to disclose what data we have to do that as well. If there's anytime you find out that information has gotten out, you've lost a grade sheet, you've lost a roll, you've lost personal information, I need to know about it, and your supervisor does too. Because there's reporting requirements. If it's serious enough, we have to inform the government about it. Yes, the government about it. And we also have to make sure we inform everybody's data. Everybody whose data we lost, we need to go out and do that. So why should you care? Well, protection of your own personal information, reputation and financial well-being of Temple. There's civil liability, and there's also criminal liability. Now, I'm not here to scare everybody. I don't know who's going to be civilly liable and who's going to be criminally liable beyond the university. In fact, I was at a meeting last week involving over 300 people from large companies all around Japan, and we were asking governmental officials, well, who's going to be penalized? And we didn't get any concrete answer. But I can tell you that for every breach, if you lose one person's name, it's sanjuma yen, 300,000 yen. Potentially, if they wanted to press criminal charges, it could be up to 6 months in jail. Now, to what extent that involves all of you, hopefully it doesn't at all. And I would think it would have to be awfully serious for them to take that and run with it. But you know, the Japanese government is very serious about this privacy stuff. In fact, there was an article today in the Japan Times about suggestions to revise the Constitution. They want to put in a constitutional amendment involving privacy in their Constitution. That's kind of how serious it's actually gotten. And so this is why we need to be caring. As much as it hurts, as much as I don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, we've all got to join together and do it. So what does it apply to? What type of documents? Well, online inquiries, information requests, applications for admission, visa worksheets, registration materials, matriculation forms, contact info for your students, for whoever, databases, student event sign-up sheets, fundraising lists, evaluations, surveys, and anything else where you might acquire a person's personal information. Broad range of stuff. Well, let's roll up the sleeves and get a little more detail. Should have all have received this packet. And there are four separate documents that are in this packet. The first one is a personal information policy acknowledgement form saying that you've been here today and that you have read the policy. We need this back because we're tracking this. And we'll track you down if you don't give it back. So while you're here, take the opportunity to fill it out and get credit for actually coming on in. The second one is important. This is the one that's internal information security and privacy policy. And this is the one that everybody needs to read and everybody needs to follow. And yes, it's detailed. And what I'm talking about today does it. And if I would read it to everyone and you would stay awake, I might do it. But we're doing it a little more dynamically. So let me kind of touch on the highlights and let you read the rest. And hopefully this will work and do it. Documents, the first thing. Providing. Do not provide to anybody outside of the TUJ employee community without consent. So if you have, let's say, a student that walks up and says, I want my friend's paper, and it's got personal information on it, unless you have consent to do that, you shouldn't give that person the paper. Somebody calls up on the phone and wants information about one of the students. Unless you have permission from that student, you cannot give that information out. If you've got a question, then don't do it. Come and talk to me about it. But that's one of the things you've got to be aware of is not going out and providing documents without having the express consent of the person who gave it to you. Now, we're going to try and build in some things to make this a little easier. And what I'm going to do, this is going forward. So all of our students here, to the extent that they've given us information, that's basically okay. But if they're going to provide us additional information in the future, we're going to need to cover that. For new people that are just coming in, we're going to need to cover that as well. And so it could be, quite a big task. But I'm going to have a 2-page or a 1-page document that goes and lists all of the possible ways that we could use a person's data here in TUJ and tell them how we're going to use it. So hopefully every time you give out a piece of information, you won't have to worry about it. But we're not to that point yet. And so err on the side of caution. Also, if you don't need the information, don't give it. There's some things you absolutely need. But if you don't need it, then don't ask for it. Social Security numbers, that's one instance. Main campus is totally going away from those now. Those are something we really don't need here. We've got other things that you can do, so don't ask for it if you don't need it. As far as protecting documents go, anything that constitutes personal information should be in a secured place. So this means if you're leaving your desk for more than 10 minutes, is reasonable, 10 or 15 minutes, anything that's got personal information needs to be either watched over or it needs to be put away. In the law department, we've got stuff that's on the top of desks. Very friendly environment. We've got all of these files. And if you walked in there right now, we're still not in compliance. My staff is in the process of trying to do that. All of those documents need to be in a desk or need to be in a filing cabinet. At night or when you leave for a long time, they need to be locked. And so for those of you that are here, you've seen the business office has been working on a project to make sure that we've got keys. To the extent that you don't have keys, just do the best with what you've got. As long as we're being reasonable, I think that we'll be okay. But we need to do that, and the deadline is Friday, effectively, to actually get that done. If you have documents that are out on your desk, and you have a student that walks up and sits down, happens quite a bit, happens with me all the time. If you have somebody else's personal information out, you need to turn it over, or you need to put another piece of paper on top of it or remove it from your desk. Something that you've got to be aware of. Same thing with visitors. If visitors are around, you've got to make sure that stuff is not visible. Faxes and printers. One of my bad habits is I will go and I will print something that is confidential. And right at that time, somebody will walk into my office and I forget about it. Lays out on the printer. Sometimes it's there overnight. I can't do that anymore. Neither can you. If you print something, go and pick it up. If you're getting a fax or you're sending a fax that has confidential information to somebody outside of TUJ that you have permission for, call and tell them it's coming. Call and confirm that they've picked it up. Just something to go ahead and protect yourself. Lock the filing cabinets. When it comes to removing things from campus, you can't do it unless you have permission from your supervisor. If your supervisor's fine with it, it's their responsibility, and so I'm fine with it. But if you take things away, it could be grades, it could be student roles, student lists. Clear that with your supervisor. If your supervisor decides that that's reasonable, then that's fine. But make sure that you protect it, because I don't want to have lost grade sheets, lost email lists, lost sign-up sheets, things like that. If any of you have laptops that have TUJ information on it, you need to be particularly careful with those. In fact, you need to get clearance from me or from Paul to remove things on laptops. Floppy disks, CD-ROMs, USB drives, it's the same thing. If you're walking around with this personal confidential data and we lose it, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble if it gets into the wrong hands. And so we've got to be very careful when it comes to removing things from campus. Difficult, but it's something that needs to be done. Another thing when it comes to documents, anything with personal information, shred it. Don't put it in the garbage. Same thing with your own personal information. It would be great if you would shred that. Well, you've got to take that extra step, and we've got to go and actually shred it. and we're in the process of acquiring some additional shredders here at TUJ, so hopefully, I think we've got 2 big ones now. Hopefully we'll have 4 fairly soon. All right. Communications. Emails. You know, we use TUJ email accounts around here. If you're using TUJ accounts, or even if you're using anything else, if it contains personal information and is going to multiple parties, use the blind CC. Use the BCC. Do not use the CC bar. If you put everybody's emails in the CC and you send it out, you're disclosing personal information. Now that doesn't apply to other TUJ employees. You could list, all the TUJ employees and send it out. But if you're sending out students or other data from third parties, you need to make sure that it's in the blind CC bar and not the CC, unless you have permission from everyone. So that means if you've got a class, you've got a new class of people sitting down, you want to have the class talk among themselves, you need to get everybody in that room to maybe sign a list saying, I consent to divulging my email to the other class members and to any other way you're going to use it. If you don't have it, you can't send out something in the CC bar. Another thing with email that you've got to be aware of is you've got to double check and triple check who you're sending it to. One of the things about email is when you're in a hurry, you start to type in somebody's name, and if you've got similar names, then maybe 2 or 3 or 4 names will come up. You might have the wrong person's name in there. And if you're sending out confidential information, it goes to the wrong person, we've then divulged it. Now, one thing that we're going to do is, you'll notice here somewhere, computers, I think, where did they go? In your policies, there is a disclaimer that we're working on right now. It's on page 4 of 6. It says notice to recipients. We are working to automatically put that notice on every single email that goes out of TUJ servers. It's not done yet, but it's a notice just telling someone, hey, if you receive this mistakenly, please delete it. Please let us know and please delete it. You'll see that it's becoming standard in a lot of emails, and that's what we're doing it as well. If you can use it starting Friday, it's great. Please do that. But that's what we need to do with the email. On the internet, to the extent that you're outside of a secured environment, that you're using personalized information, stay away from that. Facsimiles, we talked about that. Telephone calls. And this is something that's very difficult in TUJ because we don't have a lot of space. But it's something we've got to work to do. When you're on the phone, if you're ever talking about personal information, you've got to be aware of your surroundings. If there's a non-TUJ person there, you can't discuss personal information. Take, for example, and this is just one for staff. You have a potential student call in, and somebody's sitting there right in front of you. Well, they can't be watching you write down that information. You've either got to turn around to the side so they can't see, or type it in on your computer. The monitor, your monitor should always be facing away from the people so that they can't see. That's one thing you're going to have to do. It's nice to go ahead and repeat back the information to someone, but if you're repeating back the information and somebody's standing right in front of you that's a non-TUJ person, they're going to hear that. And that's disclosing information. And so think about some ways that maybe you can get away with not disclosing it. Maybe by just taking it down on your computer and saying, thank you, I'm going to send you an email that's going to confirm that I have your information right. So if you haven't received that email in the next 30 minutes, please let me know. Go ahead and send it off, and then you will have that, and the people won't hear. If you're having a sensitive conversation that involves personal information, don't have it when other people are around. And that applies to offices, it applies to hallways. You know, one thing in my training as being a lawyer, I was taught that I cannot have confidential conversations anywhere in public, whether it's an elevator, whether it's a hall, wherever it is. We don't have a lot of closed spaces around here, so it makes it difficult. So you just have to be careful that if you're having those conversations, other people aren't listening and that you're talking in a soft voice. We can just do the best that we can. Computers. I'm going to spend some time here and we're going to go to Paul. And Paul's going to talk to you about some of the things that we're doing to make your computers more secure, and some of the things that we need to do to make your email accounts and your computers secure as well.
Thanks, Ben. For those that don't know me or haven't met me before, my name is Paul Rourke. I'm the CIO here, so pleased to meet you all. Let me just switch over the PowerPoints here. Okay, so basically, in response to the privacy policy here at TUJ, there's a number of initiatives that we've done on the computer side to basically help protect that personal information, to help protect that data. As you would have seen in the handout, there's a password policy. Basically, what we need to do is secure our passwords. Up to this stage, there has been no password policy. People have been able to use whatever password they have wanted to as their password to log into our systems. Going forward, that will change. We have to have secure passwords so that we're doing our utmost to protect the personal information that is available behind those passwords. If you see the handout, it talks a little bit about the passwords that are required. Basically, everybody has to have a password of at least 6 characters in length. It cannot contain any name or anything that's recognizable, like your first name or last name or anything like that. It cannot contain anything like that. It has to contain at least characters from 3 of those 4 categories that are defined. So basically, you either have to have a combination of lowercase, uppercase, and numbers, or uppercase, numbers, and special characters. It has to contain at least 3 of those 4 categories in that password of greater than 6 characters. Now, we're working on putting this policy into place and effectively enforcing the policy from the computer side. That's not in place yet. We'll be working on that over the next few days. But in the meantime, for everybody that's here at this meeting, when you go back to your desks, if you do have a computer here, we know some people that don't actually have computers here at TUJ and you're only accessing our systems over the web. For those people, you can come and see us and we can change your password for you, or you can just wait until we get the systems up and ready for you to be able to change your password over the web. For those people who have computers here and can change their passwords, basically kind of follow the procedures here. Macs is a little different, but for most everybody here it's on PCs. Basically all you need to do is hit Control-Alt-Delete, like you do when you log on and log off your computer. If you hit Control-Alt-Delete and then click the change password, you can then add and enter your new passwords. So please do that when you go back to your desk today or when you go back when you come in tomorrow. Change your password according to the policy that we've set there. That means that when we actually do enforce this policy, you won't have to change your password at that time. So, yeah, as mentioned, we're working on that new policy right now to put it into place and enforce it from the computer side. But in the meantime, please work on changing your policy as soon as possible. Computer lockout. Logouts, yeah. One of the things we have to do is make sure that no one can see the kind of personal information that's on the monitors. That if you get up and leave your desk, if you get up and do something away from your desk, that no one can just kind of cruise by and see the information that's in your email or in your documents or in your Excel sheets. So what you need to do, if you know you're going to leave your computer for any length of time, log out. Hit Control-Alt-Delete and log out so that that information is protected. It's locked. No one can see it. What we'll also do, and we'll be sending an email around shortly, is showing you how you can set your system so that when you forget, when you get up and go move away, and you forget to actually do that, that after 10 minutes, the system will automatically log you out. And so the screensaver will come on, and basically if anybody tries to get on your computer, it will be locked. So anyway, either way, whenever you know you're not going to be using the computer and you're going to leave your desk for any space of time, press Control-Alt-Delete and log out of the system. The other thing we'll be working on, and we'll be contacting those people that have access to the various data that's available on the servers, is we're going around and doing a security audit to making sure that basically the data that's on our systems, in particular the databases and the various information that's stored on our file servers, is only accessible by the people that really need access to it. So over the next few weeks, we'll be contacting those people and just kind of confirming that you do need, whether you do need access to those systems or not. So please please help us out there when we contact you regarding that. Main systems, and obviously this doesn't apply to everyone, is the prospect databases, the new reg databases, mainly applicable to those kind of people in administration here. And as Matt mentioned, we'll be implementing a system for the disclaimer. So basically, when anybody sends a new email from the system, automatically that email disclaimer will go on the bottom of the email. There's a bit of work for us to do in order to get that system up into place. So in the meantime, you might want to just simply add that to your header, your footer, or your signature that you put on your emails. If you're concerned about the email that it has personal information and it's going to people outside of TUJ, I recommend to put that disclaimer on there in the meantime until we get the system up and ready so that it automatically goes on there by default anytime you send an email.
One thing so that everybody knows, and this is in the privacy policy as well, because all of you are valued employees, we value your information as well. And so, as far as we have information from you, here's a list of things that we might use it for. No change, from the past. Tax, if we're doing your taxes, then we're going to disclose that to the tax authorities. Payroll, we have an outside vendor that does that as well. So if you have any questions about those uses, please feel free to ask us with those as well. But that's one of the things that's actually included in this. Just to give you an idea of what's going on here in Japan, this really is a huge deal that's cost companies millions and millions of dollars and thousands of hours of time. I've been reading articles about what other companies are doing. And it's interesting. Morgan Stanley, for instance, when they went and asked their outside attorney what they should do to comply with the law, their attorney said, we suggest that you set up a center that checks every single outgoing piece of email to see whether or not it contains personal information and whether or not it's authorized or not. That was what the suggestion was. Now, Morgan Stanley said, no way. Can you imagine this huge company and somebody's going through and reading all of the emails to see if there's personal information there? It's not going to happen. But there are like insurance companies. I think it was Sumitomo Insurance. They have all these salesmen, thousands of salesmen that are walking around with laptops, with cell phones that have people's names in them. That's personal information. And so what they've done is they've gone out and bought new equipment. There's a cell phone that you've got to have a key to, an actual physical key to get into the cell phone. So they're having them keep the key in one place and the phone in another one, so if you lose the phone, then somebody can't break into it. You've got these super secure laptop computers that people are going out and investing in. It's amazing. So hopefully, even though it's going to be a little inconvenient for us to do these things, I think we're taking the reasonable stance as opposed to a lot of other places, but it really is a huge issue. And what I want to do now is we've got about 15 minutes left. For any of you that have questions, please feel free to hit me with questions now, hit Paul with questions. If you think of them later, you can hit us later, but now's your chance. Yes?
Blackboard.
Yes.
Blackboard has an option where the instructor can send email to groups of students. How can we comply with what you said, but it's not possible?
As far as Blackboard goes, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, when you send that email to groups of students, I don't think it shows everybody's email addresses.
I think you'll find with Blackboard that, because it is a mail list, basically the person that sends it, the person that receives will only see the person's email that we've sent them. They won't see all the other people that have got that email. So I think because of that,
No, but you see, you can set up group activities, and the purpose of group activities is for the students in the group
To email back and forth between
each other. So how are they going to know who's in the group?
As far as that goes, what we're going to do going forward is have this policy that's going to cover that. Say, hey, anything that you do on Blackboard, you're consenting that, if you just close it, you'll go ahead and do it. I've got kind of like a chat room type thing on my law site, and I've got the same disclaimer there. So as long as we're informing them, you can inform people orally about what you're going to do with their data. It can be either orally or in writing. It's best to have it in writing if possible, but at minimum, it's got to be orally.
Okay, so we could do that in, say, for example, the area that's called course documents, just put that there and have it there for everyone.
As long as we're informing them, and, you know, if you have it in course documents, say, you know, by using the site, you know, your consent, and the information you disclose on the site, by using it, you're consenting to all of the other class members using it. Something like that?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, something else related to Blackboard as well, because I use it a lot. Having a course open for outside access.
That's a very good point. If you've got it for outside access, it can't contain personal information if consent hasn't been obtained. So as long as there's not personal information on there, like if you had a list
But
of...
the names of students are there.
For outside access?
Well, they're coming into the class and you send an email to everyone.
Well, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think you're talking about the preview thing, right? You could go in and preview it and see all the documents you've posted.
Then you have a guest access.
I think, but with guest access,
I don't think you can see
I don't think
emails.
you can see anybody else that's actually in there, unless you get access maybe to this discussion board, and then they could see possibly
Right.
other emails in the discussion board. Yeah.
But with guest access, I don't think they have
Access to the
access to
discussion.
the discussion board.
And
We'll check on that.
one more thing about Blackboard. If I'm using Blackboard at home, and I'm going to be able to try to attempt a humor here. And if,
We like humor.
Okay, if my partner comes into the room and says, "Get out of here! You can't watch this." Is that okay? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm telling you. so.
Great reaction. You can blame it on me. Blame it on me.
I think one thing I forgot to mention, I think we'll maybe have a think about the orientation of your monitors and the kind of orientation of your desks and your offices, and look for ways that maybe you can kind of set it up so that people that are walking by or just sitting somewhere, if possible, obviously, can't see your monitor easily.
Yeah, and
so that your monitor's facing a wall or something that's not facing, facing the path where students can just simply walk through.
I'm not sure if any of you have been up on sixth floor. All the cubicles are facing each other.
so to the extent that it's physically impossible, what you've got to do is when somebody walks in, toggle over to a different screen.
But I think-
Or just block it so that somebody can't see if you have personal information up on your monitor.
I think on the sixth floor, though, there's a way for the monitor to actually be facing into the cubicle rather than out of the cubicle. Whether that's possible due to the alignment of the actual drawers or not, I'm not sure. But I think where possible, rather than have the monitor screen face out of the cubicle, have it face back into the cubicle.
Roman?
In the computer labs where the students work, they're arranged in rows so that the student in the second row can see the monitor of the person in the first row. You can stand in the hallway and look at people's monitors. Are you going to rearrange this?
That's not us disclosing information, that's them disclosing information. So that wouldn't fall within it.
We've provided an environment where a student is working, is emailing and so on, and someone could be sitting behind them and reading that message.
I understand, but it's them, they're the ones that are consciously choosing to go out and do that. That's their decision. That's not a TUJ employee going and providing their personal information.
In that occasion, if it was an actual Blackboard that they were accessing, that would be a discussion.
That's them disclosing it, not us. So, any other questions? One thing about monitors for those of you that, you know, have computers here, a lot of times what students like to do is they like to sit at your desk and peer around and look. You know, you're going to have to kind of make sure that that doesn't happen as well if you've got other person's personal information up on the screen. Question?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of junk mail, and among the junk mail which I've been getting, I had a few messages with my full name, which made me very worried, because if they can get my full name at TUJ, they can get all this information as well. And I was wondering how you can stop that.
Have you followed we sent around an email about how you can put the junk mail filters on your
I did.
system?
I
There's
did,
no
and
way
I
for
have
us.
much less.
Okay. There's no
And
way
I'm
for
not
us
worried
to.
about the quantity, I was worried about those who arrived with my name.
There's no way for us to stop your name getting out there. If you send email to anybody outside of TUJ, your name's effectively out there. We can't control
Oh, it's not, it's junk mail. It's-
No, but
it's just
I'm
like
saying
no deal.
people can pick up your name as soon as you send an email to some other computer system. We can't validate the security of other computer systems, so it's possible for viruses and things like that to pick up your name as soon as you send it outside the TUJ system. So it's possible for some spammer to find your name as soon as you send it outside of TUJ. There's no way for us to stop that process. It's just a matter of trying to relieve the burden of having to deal with the junk email. There's no way to stop your name getting out there unless you just stop sending email.
In fact, my staff actually sends spam to me. Seriously. You know, one of those 2-word things that says click on this. So how that works, I have no clue, but it's pretty simple. Yes?
This question for Paul. You're going to give us some new passwords for web access?
You will make the password. If you go back to your computer and follow those directions, you will make that password. And that password that you log into your computer is the same password that you'll use when you get access to your email over the web.
Okay.
So if you go back and just hit Control or Delete, click on the Change Password button,
And that automatically changes my...
that changes it throughout the whole system.
Could you send us an email with the email disclaimer?
Sure.
And we got messages today on the new TU, I guess, main campus ID.
Yeah.
Is that affecting us here at all?
That will be. We've got Barbara from Main Campuses coming over next week, and she's going to talk to me a lot more about that actually, how that's going to happen. They're still really sorting out how it's all going to take place. One thing it's kind of apart from this, one thing that actually is going to happen, which I didn't realize until I talked to her this morning, is that all our numbers will change, even if they're not social security numbers. Every single ID in TUJ will change to a number starting with 9. So it's a big project.
Now, just so you know, the 4th document that's in your packet is actually a message from Tim O'Rourke over at Main Campus. This conveniently came out on Friday. It talks about all of the personal information, privacy protection measures that they're taking at Main Campus. Social security numbers being one of them. So it's kind of interesting to compare and see what's being driven worldwide and know that we're not the only one doing this at Main Campuses as well. Roman, you had something else?
Yeah, you said that personal information included name, email address, and other things. The TUJ website includes, therefore, personal information. If you look at the website, you'll find my name and my email address, which means anybody can use it, anybody knows. And so that means that all of that has to be removed?
No, because as long as you're consenting to it being disclosed, which you are as an employee here, then it's fine. As long as there's consent, you can do with the information whatever you want.
So that every employee then has to understand that in having your name listed publicly
It's
as
public.
an employee of Temple, it's public. Do we sign?
We've been doing it going forward. I mean, it's nothing you need to sign. It's just we're putting your information on the website. There you go. Voila. This is what we're doing with it. So, yes.
This is a hypothetical situation. I noticed your seminar, there's no textual and there's virtual information. But you also mentioned about telephone conversation.
Yes.
What if you're having a conference with a student using their name, talking about their grade, and telling their phone numbers? Is that, do we have to go somewhere else?
Yes. Find some place where you can talk in a soft voice. Hopefully you would be doing that anyway if you're having that conversation, because that's confidential without even the law. But yeah, trying to find a place where you can have that conversation. I know it's tough, but you know, finding a room, finding a corner, talking soft, you know, whatever. Just try and get it done the best you can. Any other questions? Yes?
We have most of our teachers, well, we have class lists, class folders, and they are in pigeon boxes.
Thank you. Mailboxes, yes, that was the one I missed.
Does that, how does that affect, should we have a lock or?
You're going to have to come up with something that keeps them secure. Either relocating them so that people don't have general access, so they're observed. We've got 130 mailboxes right around the corner where we have people's personal information that comes in making sure that if it's confidential, that it's just in an envelope and sealed as opposed to just out. Just trying to be reasonable. I can't imagine having a lock for everyone. That would be the best case scenario. But, as long as we're doing what's reasonable so that if something happened, we could say, hey, we did everything possible, we complied, then you should be good. But at least putting them in envelopes, making sure that they're sealed and they stay confidential. If somebody, takes them as a thief, there's not a lot we can do. We can try and prevent that. But as long as we're making sure that they're confidential. Yeah?
That's going to take a lot of envelopes for CLA people.
Yeah, so one of my suggestions is not maybe an envelope. It might be something a little more permanent that keeps it shut. There's like plastic folders that you can clip down, things like that might do it.
What I'm saying, we get class lists about 4 times at the beginning of the term.
Yeah, I think we're going to do the class list a little bit differently.
Okay.
Any other questions? All these happy, smiling faces.
I have one other quick thing. I usually take attendance by passing around a sheet and have students to sign their name. I can't do that anymore?
You should be fine.
It's something.
Just to be clear, for example, my teachers will have to, contact students when they have, for example, they're sick.
Yeah.
And they would like to arrange a makeup class, etc. And although most of the time the office will do it, sometimes there will be teachers who will contact the students by themselves. So does that mean that on the, if they're 10, 12 students, that all those students' email addresses should be all BCC?
Yes. Yeah. And when your students come in on your registration sheet, we can put something saying, you're agreeing to disclose, this is how we're going to use the information that we're getting from you. A lot of people, and I've seen this with my students, they don't want their email addresses disclosed to other people in the class. So I would just keep those confidential. Any other questions?
We can assume that internal email from one TUJ staff to another TUJ staff are
No problem. Yeah. No problem. Between TUJ employees, no problem at all. If you're going to go to a non-TUJ party, student or whatever, that's when you've got to think, okay, do I have consent to give them this information? Roman?
Temple and TJ is the same?
Yes. Yep. That's how I'm going to interpret it. Yeah. Any others?
One last.
Yes.
When we make the disclaimer, we have something like an other related matters. Can we just dump a lot of other related matters?
It's supposed to be as specific as possible. So I'll put it in anyway, but we need to get specific. So, and then if you're going to use it outside of the bounds of what you originally said, then we ought to sit down and talk about whether or not that's permissible or not. All right. Great. Well, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, if you can, if you've got your signed sheet, you can show me, you'll pick them up. Just a talk, yeah. Just a talk.